Some people are not drowning. They are pulling you underwater on purpose, not with rage, not with violence, but with need, with endless problems, with emotional collapse, with stories that never resolve. And the most dangerous lie you've been taught is this: if I just try harder, they'll change. If I stay longer, if I explain better, if I love deeper, if I sacrifice more. No, they won't, because for some people, your effort is not a solution. It is a resource. Your patience becomes their oxygen. Your empathy becomes their escape route. Your presence becomes the reason they never face themselves. And here's the part that hurts to admit: some people are not meant to be saved. They are meant to be survived, because trying to rescue them doesn't elevate them. It slowly drowns you. Tonight, I'm going to tell you something that may feel cold at first, something that might trigger guilt, something you were never taught because it threatens the image you have of yourself. But if you listen carefully, it will quietly set you free. There are 4 types of people you must never try to save. Not because you lack compassion, not because you're selfish, not because you've hardened your heart, but because your life depends on it. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll finally understand why walking away was never the betrayal. Staying too long was. Type 1, the eternal victim. At first, they seem unlucky. Nothing ever works out for them. People misunderstand them. Opportunities slip away just before success. If you listen closely, there's a pattern, but it's subtle. Nothing is ever their fault. When something goes wrong, there's always a story. The boss was toxic. The partner was abusive. The system was rigged. The timing was wrong. And individually, any of these could be true. But together, repeated over years, they form an identity. The victim identity. Pain becomes proof of innocence. Suffering becomes moral currency. Responsibility becomes a threat. When you try to help them, something strange happens. They don't move forward. They circle. They relive the same stories. They revisit the same wounds. They replay the same betrayals with different characters. And slowly, you're pulled in. You become the listener, the validator, the emotional jury that confirms they were wronged. But the moment you stop rescuing them, the moment you say, "What are you going to do differently?" the tone changes. Suddenly, you're unsupportive. Suddenly, you don't understand. Suddenly, you're just like everyone else who abandoned them. You become the next villain in their story. Because the truth is this: you can't save someone who needs their pain to justify their identity. If they healed, they'd lose the narrative that protects them from accountability, and they won't let that go easily. Type 2, the emotional drainer. They're harder to detect. They don't explode. They don't create obvious chaos. They don't demand loudly. They just drain. Every conversation feels heavy. Every interaction leaves you tired. Every meeting somehow becomes about their problems. They talk softly about struggles. They frame exhaustion as depth. They mistake emotional dumping for intimacy. And because you're empathetic, you listen. But notice this: they rarely ask how you're doing. And if they do, it's only a brief pause, a breath, before returning to themselves. This isn't vulnerability, it's consumption. They feed on attention, they feed on concern, they feed on your presence. And no matter how much you give, they never feel full. Because they are not empty by accident, they are empty by design. They've learned that emotional weight attracts caretakers, that fragility invites protection, that being unwell keeps people close, so they stay there. And if you pull back just slightly, they feel abandoned, not because you harmed them, but because you stopped feeding the dynamic. This type rarely explodes your life. They quietly drain it, until one day you wake up and realize you're exhausted not from living, but from carrying someone else's emotional hunger. Type 3, the self-destructive genius. This one is the most seductive. They're intelligent, charismatic, full of unrealized potential. They talk about big dreams. They understand themselves deeply. They sound like someone on the edge of greatness, and you believe them. You see who they could be. But watch their behavior. They sabotage momentum. They create crises right before stability. They blow things up when peace appears. They confuse intensity with meaning. Drama feels like purpose. Conflict feels like depth. Calm feels wrong. You think your stability will save them, your routine, your consistency, your groundedness. But here's the truth. No one warns you about. They don't want peace. Peace feels boring to a nervous system trained in disaster. Their body is addicted to adrenaline. Their identity is wired around chaos. Their sense of aliveness depends on volatility. And if you stay long enough, if things get too calm, they will create a fire. Not because they hate you, but because calm feels like death to them. And eventually, they will burn your house down just to feel alive again. Let me pause you here. Not to slow down, but to make sure you're still with me. Because if any part of this feels personal good, that means you're not watching this for entertainment. You're watching it for clarity, and clarity often hurts before it heals. This isn't about labeling people as bad. It isn't about cutting everyone off. It isn't about becoming cold or distant. This is about recognizing patterns before they quietly steal years of your life. Because most damage doesn't arrive dramatically. It arrives slowly, through tolerance, through patience, through the belief that things will change. You don't notice the cost at first. You just feel more tired, more distracted, less motivated, less like yourself. And you assume it's stress. But it isn't. It's misdirected energy. It's the slow leak that happens when your emotional resources are being drained by dynamics that never improve. Let me say this clearly. You are not weak for caring. Your empathy is not a flaw. But empathy without discernment turns into self-erasure. And most people don't realize that until they're already exhausted. This is the moment where many people click away. Because the truth is close now. Uncomfortably close. And what comes next isn't about obvious chaos or loud dysfunction. It's about something far more dangerous, something that looks responsible, sounds mature, feels hopeful. The fourth type, the one who talks about growth but never arrives, the one who promises change but delays action, the one who keeps you emotionally invested without ever stepping into accountability. This type doesn't drain you loudly. They drain you through hope. And hope, when misplaced, is the most expensive emotion of all. Stay with me. Because if you've ever felt like you're waiting for someone to become who they say they are, the next part will change how you see them forever. Type 4, the accountable avoider. This is the most dangerous type of all, not because they are loud, destructive, or chaotic, but because they sound like they're evolving. They say the right things. They talk about healing. They speak the language of growth. They quote self-help ideas. They promise transformation. If words were enough, they would already be free. But when it's time to act, when change requires discomfort, something always gets in the way. They disappear. They deflect. They delay. Not dramatically, quietly. There's always a reason. I just need more time. I'm not in the right headspace. Once things settle down, after this phase passes, and because you believe in potential, you wait, you encourage, you reassure, you soften expectations. Without realizing it, you become part of the system that allows avoidance to continue. Responsibility gets outsourced to motivation, to timing, to circumstances, and eventually to you. You remind them, you support them, you emotionally stabilize them while they postpone the work. You become their emotional crutch, their excuse, their safety net. And as long as you're there, they never have to stand. Not because they can't, but because they don't have to. This type doesn't trap you with chaos. They trap you with hope. Hope that things will finally change. Hope that this time is different. Hope that your patience will pay off. But hope without action is just another form of delay. Psychological reality, invisible enemy. Psychology has a name for this dynamic. Rescue conditioning. It's not malicious, it's not planned, but it is devastating. When someone repeatedly avoids accountability, their brain learns a simple pattern. Pain appears. Someone else fixes it. Pain disappears. The nervous system takes notes. There is no reflection, no behavioral correction, no internal growth, just relief, and relief is addictive. Neurologically, the brain associates safety not with responsibility, but with external rescue. Over time, the person stops developing internal coping mechanisms. They stop learning from consequences. They stop building emotional resilience. Because they don't have to, someone else will carry it. This is how dependency is formed, not through cruelty, not through manipulation, but through repeated rescue. And dependency disguised as love is one of the most destructive forces in human relationships because it feels noble on the surface. It feels like patience. It feels like empathy. It feels like sacrifice. But underneath, it quietly erodes you. Your time shrinks. Your energy drains. Your boundaries soften. You become tired not because life is hard, but because you're living two emotional lives at once. And the most dangerous part, the more you rescue, the more necessary you feel. And the more necessary you feel, the harder it becomes to leave. That's the invisible enemy, not the person, the pattern. This pattern isn't new. Long before psychology had names for trauma, attachment, or codependency, ancient thinkers were already warning about the danger of misplaced compassion, not softly, not politely, but clearly. The Stoics understood something modern culture often ignores. Not all suffering is accidental. Not all pain is meant to be removed. Epictetus said, "Do not attempt to cure what is not within your control." At first, that sounds cold, but it isn't. It's an acknowledgement of reality. Some people's suffering does not exist because they lack support. It exists because they refuse responsibility. And when you attempt to cure what someone refuses to confront, you don't heal them. You interfere with the only process that could change them. Even the Buddha, often misunderstood, as endlessly compassionate, drew a clear line. He taught, attachment to suffering is still attachment, meaning pain can become familiar. Identity can form around brokenness. Letting go of suffering can feel more frightening than staying inside it. For some people, suffering provides attention, meaning, excuse, belonging. And when you try to save them, you threaten the identity they've built. So they resist quietly. They agree without acting. They promise without changing. They accept help without growth. Nietzsche was even more ruthless in his clarity. He warned, whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become one. He wasn't talking about violence. He was talking about absorption. When you spend years fighting chaos, you internalize chaos. When you dedicate your life to rescuing dysfunction, your own life becomes disordered. You stop building your future. You stop listening to your instincts. You start normalizing exhaustion. And slowly, without noticing, you become hardened, resentful, and empty. Not because you lacked compassion, but because you spent it where it could not grow. Ancient wisdom never praised saving everyone. It praised discernment. It praised restraint. It praised knowing when to help and when to step away, because saving the wrong people doesn't make you noble. It makes you depleted, and what comes next is understanding why walking away was never betrayal. It was preservation. The pattern beneath all four expanded. Now step back, because once you see this pattern, you can't unseen it. All four types share the same core dynamic. They benefit from your suffering, not consciously, not maliciously, not because they wake up intending to harm you, but functionally. Your empathy feeds their stagnation. Your loyalty delays their awakening. Your sacrifice protects them from reality, and reality is the only teacher they might ever listen to. As long as you absorb the consequences, they don't feel them. As long as you cushion the fall, they don't learn to stand. As long as you stay, they don't have to change. This is the uncomfortable truth. Your presence can unintentionally be the reason they remain stuck, not because you're weak, but because you're strong, strong enough to carry what isn't yours, strong enough to endure what shouldn't be endured, strong enough to survive patterns that should have ended long ago. But strength, when misapplied, becomes self-destruction, and the moment you step back, when you stop rescuing, fixing, buffering, explaining, something profound happens. They are forced to face themselves. Some will grow, some will walk away, some will resent you, but none of that is your responsibility, because growth that depends on your sacrifice is not growth. It's avoidance. And in the next part, we're going to confront the truth. Most people avoid their entire lives, the truth that changes everything. Here it is, unfiltered, not softened, not diluted, not wrapped in comfort. You cannot save people who do not choose themselves. You can support effort. You can encourage growth. You can walk beside someone who is walking, but you cannot carry someone who refuses to move. And trying to do so will cost you more than time. It will cost you identity. You cannot heal people who weaponize your kindness, who turn empathy into access, who turn patience into permission, who turn forgiveness into immunity. Your compassion becomes their shield. Every time you excuse behavior, they avoid reflection. Every time you absorb pain, they avoid accountability. And slowly, the relationship stops being mutual. It becomes extractive. And here's the part. Most people avoid saying, "You cannot build a meaningful life," while dragging 4 anchors behind you. Anchors don't look heavy at first. They look like loyalty. They look like love. They look like commitment. But over time, they keep you from moving. They keep you from growing. They keep you tied to the past while your future waits untouched. Some people only grow when you leave, not because you punish them, but because your absence removes the cushion. It introduces consequence. It creates silence. It forces self-confrontation, and that confrontation painful as it is the beginning of real change. If you stay, you delay that moment. If you leave, you allow it. This isn't abandonment, it's alignment. It's choosing truth over guilt, reality over fantasy, growth over comfort. And if this truth hurts, it's because you've been living against it. But what comes next is where power returns. If this message resonated, you already know what to do. Protect your time. Guard your energy. Choose growth over guilt. Subscribe if you want more truths they don't teach you in school. Join this space, quietly rebuilding minds, and remember this. You are not here to save everyone. You are here to become someone worth saving yourself.